So you see, mate, we just normally start with a bit of fucking bullshit that doesn't actually. Well, people don't see this part of it.
So we look at the camera, or?
Oh, we just look at the camera. We look at each other. You know, fucking. You can. You know, you fucking know how it works in TV. But anyway, all right. Hello there, and welcome to Melbourne UNreal, where we are mastering music and mastering life. I'm your host, Tony JacktheBear Mantz, and we're coming from Deluxe Mastering Studios in Melbourne, Australia, which I still believe is the world's most livable city. And I'm so fucking pleased to have this bloke on. I really am. This is Finbar O'Hanlon. Finn, mate.
Hey, mate.
Good. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Good to see you as well,
Awesome.
my friend. Now, Finn. Finn is a professional weirdo. That's
actually my title.
That's your job title.
Yeah, job title.
And as
Worked very hard to get that title, by the way. I actually spent my whole life working it hard to being undescribable.
Yeah. And anyway, Finn's an entrepreneur. He's a musician. He has a company called
I do tax, fishing, whole heap of things.
Got a company called Linus, which recently got floated on the ASX.
Yep.
You have, is it 7 patents or 9 patents now?
I've now got 12, 14 filed. Between the Ronics stuff I've done with Zapper and Linus, the core patents I have here.
Yeah. And I remember, just so you know, I met Finn back, it was in 95, 96, I think it was.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And Finn was just a very high-tech guy. He had a studio. He was right on the cutting edge of using all the whatever the latest technology was happening at the time, and playing guitar. And he's doing an album, and I got to listen to one of his solo records, and we just became friends and hooked up and just had loads of fun. And then he left. He went overseas, came back. He had all these amazing adventures, and pretty much you owned it. And I loved it when I said, "Dude, how the fuck do you do this?" And you said, "I don't know." And for some, it's like,
I don't know.
Yeah, but for some people who answer that, but for some people that would answer that way, it's almost like, okay, take the piss. But he wasn't taking the piss. That's the beautiful, the irony. It's beautiful. Anyway, it's good to have you here, mate.
Thanks, mate. Awesome to be here.
And I got you here because, as I said.
By the way, I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about, but I just hope. I know it's going to be awesome.
It's awesome. Absolutely.
Which is my word, which is super awesome.
Super awesome, right. You know, because that's how you roll.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, mate, look, so I got you here because part of this one of the big parts of this podcast is just to connect with, if people are friends of mine, that's great, but people who work in music, people who have had a great journey in music, people who have been successful, and sharing their story and just telling us about, what they've learned through their journey in music, and because there's a lot of, as you know, one of my passions now is, apart from doing my mastering, is that it's talking to kids and trying to help inspire kids and introduce kids to people who actually have been on a journey, are on a journey, have been through the fucking shit, who know what it's like, and to show that what actually can be achieved. So
yep.
So tell us, mate, about just tell us about your start, where you started. Just fucking tell us about what you don't know and how you don't know how you did it. Because the sourcesomeness of that.
Well, it's a long and convoluted journey, but it's a lot of fun. And so, where do I start? So, I moved out from the UK, from Liverpool, England, where I was born, in '77 to Australia, and a kid with the name of Finbar, and talk like that from Liverpool, it was a little bit hardcore. So over time, my accent sort of dropped. But look, I never understood what was wrong with me, because I was just this crazy person that I could just never relate to school. And it was only later in life I worked out that I don't learn the normal way that people learn. I reverse engineer things. So give me a block of code, give me anything and I can pull it apart. Give me a full orchestral piece, I can pull it apart, and I learn that way. It's just the way I learned. But I didn't know that at school. And being left-handed and playing guitar right-handed, I went to a Christian school, so all the brothers would try and I'd get the cane and all that sort of stuff. And so I hated it. But I was introduced to the guitar at about age 11. And my brother went on a trip. And my dad said, you have to play till your fingers bleed. So I started playing till my fingers bleed. Because I loved it. And so much so that I loved it that I started playing the good old 8 hours a day. I wagged school to play guitar. My dad said to me, look, Finn, you've got to get your school certificate, which was year 10. I didn't want to get that. So I was just like, it just doesn't interest me. Anyway, long story short, I hung in there, but in the meantime, I was so lucky. I found an agent. I was doing heaps of TV commercials, and so because I was doing dancing and singing and all this crazy stuff, right? Because I was just interested in art. I didn't like school. I didn't like theory. I'd ask questions, and people wouldn't. The brothers would be like, well, they'd say, I want to teach something, and I just go, well, why are we learning that? They go, shut up, O'Hanlon, go outside. So I'm just like, okay. And what was great about a bad experience at school was it built me a very thick skin, which later on in life has been one of the most powerful things. So, when I mentor and talk to kids and that, which is part of my passion too, is to say, you know what, all these hardships I had at school actually turned me into an amazing person, because I have this really thick hide. Anyway, so I left school. I didn't even pick up my school certificate. That's how useful I thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I was ripping on guitar. I was playing gigs.
Who are some of the guitar heroes you had back in the day? Who are you?
Van Halen, George Lynch, just a bunch of guys. Lukather, all guys I've either played with now or done instructional videos with or whatever. So it's quite amazing. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I left school, went to a guitar shop to buy a guitar. Just after I left school, Turramurra Music in Sydney. Went down there and I was just sitting there playing this Ian Noyce Strat, Australian-made Strat. And David Courtney, who was David Bowie's producer, was just in the store. He was like, oh my God, I was doing Eruption just after Eruption came out, and I was like 17. So I got asked if I wanted to do a session in Melbourne. I was like, kid. I'm like, yeah. So I flew to Melbourne, met all these people, met Michael Gudinski. He put me in a band, Jump Incorporated. Within a couple of months, was recording.
Sex and Fame. I remember Sex and Fame.
Yep. Was charting in the top 10. Instantly, then I was on Countdown. I was traveling around Australia. I was touring. It was like a couple of months after I left school.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right? It's awesome. So now I was rocking it out, touring with all these huge bands around Australia, playing in front of huge audiences, and I'm on TV with a single that was charting. Great. So, look, I did that. I then sort of started doing guitar clinics. So I started getting all these endorsements. All these people would just give me gear. And I was a big fan of Jackson's. I got the very first Jackson guitar into Australia, and I used it. It was flown in, and I played Countdown with my Bengal Tiger Jackson. Yeah. And then I lived with Steve Williams from YYE, and Steve had a pink Jackson. And so we lived in King's Cross in Sydney, and it was the stories, well, rock and roll stories, but it was awesome. Yeah. And, we just love guitar, so both of us used to just play all day. So I was like this young guitar player in Sydney, and I started doing sessions and teaching, and I started doing clinics. And I started doing so many clinics. I'd do the Melbourne Guitar Show, Sydney Guitar Show. I'd do clinics at guitar stores. So I started doing that. Then I started teaching at the Australian Institute of Music, which was basically the conservatorium there in Sydney. I was teaching the Berkeley course. And my early teachers were Phil Emanuel and Don Andrews. So I learned jazz, and Phil was amazing. And, look, it was just a great sort of background. So I just fell into it. And it was really bizarre because I never had a dream of being a professional musician. I just loved playing guitar.
Yeah.
And I hated school.
Yeah.
And I had no idea and all my family are all sort of pretty smart, but I was just like, look, I don't know anything about anything. I just want to play guitar.
Yeah.
And so I fell into it. And so here's this guy who's crazy from Liverpool. He's got this weird name like Finbar. He's playing guitar. Now I'm in this band. It all just happened, right? So then I got to about 28. I'd been doing so much teaching and so much clinics and tours, and I was just getting a bit burnt out. I was like, I played a NAMM show in America, and I played with all these peers. Frank Gambale introduced me to the guys from Mesa Boogie Randall. I got all this Mesa Boogie gear. I was playing in a band in Sydney called Lost Angels after that with Barton from the Models. I had all this gear. I had all this stuff given to me, all these guitars a year and stuff. And then I worked with BC Rich, Bernie Rico, flew to America, worked with them. Anyway, long story short, I was like, a group in Melbourne called me up and said, look, we're going to build Australia's premier music retail store with studios, rehearsal rooms, a nightclub. And they asked me if I wanted to be a partner. It was called Revolver. And I went, okay. So I came down, shifted house to Melbourne where I'd never lived before, and I started building a music store. What do I know about music stores? Nothing, right? And so I started getting into computers in the early days, and so when Sound Tools was out. This is what you guys wouldn't know. A lot of you guys wouldn't have any clue on this, but this is sort of, I'm 49 now, but back in the day, it's like computers were replacing tape, and everyone was like poo-pooing them. It's all too techie, but I got stuck right into it, and I started learning it. And I remember back in the day, some of these Australia's famous guitarists, who I was recognised up there. They'd ring me going, "Dude, you're learning computers. What are you doing? You should be doing more sessions." I'm just like, I'm bored. I'm one of these guys that has to keep learning.
Yeah.
And sort of I reached this peak with guitar. I've travelled all around the world. I've done clinics. And I'm just like, okay, well, where do I go from here? And everyone was like, yeah, but you're an expert at guitar. Just keep doing guitar. I was like, I don't really care about it. I'd actually lost my passion for my art, which was something that I was so passionate about. And I was getting into the passion of computers. And I remember back then, my mum would say to me, "Finbar, you always change your careers. I don't know what's wrong with you. You get something good and then you change. What's wrong?" And I'm just like, you know what? I don't know. Because it doesn't fuel my passion. Yeah. And I've always been about passion. And I'm like, I'll just learn. I don't know anything about anything, but I'll just learn it and get good at it.
Yeah.
So, story goes, I get really good at computers. I convince Apple to put their computers into this music store, which back in the day was unheard of. There was no music shops in Australia that had computers, even pretty much in the world. I then became a Masters of Media product specialist for Apple. I knew a ton about computers and recording systems, so I became this sort of authority.
Well, that's how I came onto you, because just for your knowledge, and you were helping me out with I just got a Pro Tools rig, and you were coming and giving me fucking help with all that.
Yeah,
shit,
so I'd help out the really big studios, blah, blah, blah. And then I started doing consulting, and the very first, you might have heard of a software called Logic. Back in the day, it was Notator, and Gerhard Lengling, who wrote Logic, when that first came out, I started doing some presentations on that, and another software called OSC Deck. Long story short, here's this guitar player that left school, that met someone, that all of a sudden got this session, then fell into a band, started touring, came to Melbourne, built this music stop, then we built a nightclub, then I built a big full-on recording studio in Revolver. And instead of buying gear, I got everything given to me. So, and not only that, I had about 30 Macintosh computers. I didn't pay for anything. So I had Eventide harmonizers, I had all the gear. Everyone gave it to me because I was teaching people on that gear.
What's interesting, right? Today I did a post about people being victims. Now someone would fucking listen to this story right now, and those who I think are a bit more narrow-minded would just say, "Well, how do you do that? What do you reckon is the key to you being able to attract that sort of thing?" Like,
and like we've just started this story, right? Because it just goes like off the charts. This is just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
But it's this: when you have passion, when you can tap into your passion. Everyone that I've met in life somewhere has a passion, and sometimes it's buried because they've been taught you have to get a job and then you can have some fun on the side. And that's okay. As we talk through this podcast, I now consult to some of the world's biggest companies on innovation. I've built, and we'll get into all the innovation stuff I talk, but once you understand what's happening in the world, robots replacing workforce, industrial internet of things, quantum computing, all of these new things that are coming out, the things that are going to give people this ability to have a future are the ability to communicate, the ability to attract, and the ability to think. And so attractiveness is a really, really interesting subject. So without getting too technical, you have two parts of your mind, your subconscious and your conscious. Your conscious is where thinking goes into, okay? So your thoughts come in daily. Your subconscious are your paradigms of what you've been ingrained, the things that you actually think are real, your belief system, right? Yeah. And so what I did was I started, it's hard to say, but it's like I started trying to unwire my belief system because I believe that most of the things I've been taught in life were wrong. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, hang on, all these teachers are teaching me stuff, they're telling me all these things which are all wrong. I'm already in a band, all this stuff happens, and I've gone, well, how come it happens to me? And it was interesting because I started asking people, and people just go, "Man, we just love being around you." And I went, "What does that mean?" And it was just because I had a passion to do something, and I found that because I was passionate about it, people would attract to that. Yeah. Because it was like, well, and so people would be asking me, "But oh my God, you know all this stuff about computers?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, but that's not important because I'm doing this." Yeah. And then I'd start inventing things. And so what ended up happening was, did the studio, carried on, blah blah blah, but in a big defining moment happened for me where I went from Apple. I started doing this stuff with Imagic and Logic, and then I worked for Avid. I was doing post-production. I learned silicon graphics. I was doing animation. This is way back when.
Yeah, that was cutting-edge technology, I remember.
Cutting edge.
Yeah.
And so people would go to me, how do you know all this stuff? What school did you go to learn Shell, Unix, or Solaris? I go, oh. You know, I was sitting at Kiss Audio Visual post-production facility in Melbourne, who'd spent, I don't know, $800,000 on Onyx 2 mainframes with this flame system. And I'm working on the Avid, and late at night, no one's there. And no one knew how to use it. It was like this huge expensive thing. So I just started reading books. And I've had this adaptability. Can read manuals for some reason. I don't really normally read books, but I read manuals and I soak them in. Anyway, so I started doing all this stuff, and I actually started thinking, what's wrong with me? I won't stay in anything. And people go, but you can make a lot of money just being this computer guy. And I'm like, but I don't really I like computers, but I don't really like them. It's like, always got breakdowns, there's always problems. Yeah. I just here's the thing. I often start a journey where I don't know the destination's going to be. Right. And people think that's really weird.
It's different to what most people do, yeah.
Because they're like, well, I'm going to go there. And I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm just interested. And so people would say to me, but what do you know? You're a guitar player. You don't even know math, or you don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So what's that got to do with anything? They're like, oh, but you need to know algebra and stuff to write code. And so, jumping ahead, what ends up happening with me is, because I've always been allowed to be a free thinker. Yeah. I never went to school. I don't buy into any doctrine. I just learn what I want.
Rules, mate. Bullshit rules. Rules. Yeah.
Well, and so I ended up just starting to invent things. And so what happened was Nortel Networks, a guy that worked at a big corporate company back in the day, they were trying to sell a box to National Australia Bank, is the basic story. They rang me and said, one of the guys who worked there, was senior, said, look, Finn, we can't sell this box. It's $20,000. We want to sell to all these big banks and no one will buy it. And these are smart businessmen. I went, okay, how come you can't sell it? I went, well, it's complicated, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, there was competitors in the market and they were kicking their butt. So this is what happens. And I'm a dummy. I got no idea about telco grade carrier equipment, any of that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But the guy asked me what my thoughts were. So I said this. What does it do? They went, well, it's voice over IP box. It cuts down the telecommunications. I said, great. So what's the problem it solves? Well, it solves the problem of telecommunications in a branch. Okay. What else does it do? Nothing. That's what it does. I said, right. Well, it's a computer, right? No, it's a carrier grade piece of equipment. I said, well, it's white and it's square and it has cards in it. And does it run an operating system? Well, yeah. Okay, well, I call that a computer. And I said, okay, what other problems exist in a branch of a bank? Now, I don't know about you guys listening to this podcast, but to me, that's like a pretty basic question, right? And they went, well, we don't know. And I went, well, shouldn't you figure that out? And they went, why? And I said, well, so we can figure out what this thing can do. They go, you don't understand. This is a VoIP box. Voice over IP. So I said, okay, well, let me do this. Let me think about this. I said, this is what I said to them without a word of a lie. I said, if I could take that box and turn it into a video distribution system into branches so we could switch video and displays in and out of advertising to live TV, different branches, schedule things. They just looked at me going, are you like Captain? Are you insane? Do you not even know what you're doing? They looked at me the way I look and went, well, look, that's all great, but you're just insane. Yeah. And I said to them, well, look, I know a lot about video. I've been in video a long time and I know a lot about digital audio. And I said, here's the problem that I see. A bank, I won't name who it is, might spend $500,000 on TV commercials on television, right? Yeah. Why do they do that? Don't know. I'm saying, could it be that they're trying to sell products, services, their brands that people shop at their bank? Yes. Okay. Well, if they're spending the money on the networks to like $500,000 or whatever the media buys to put those ads on TV, why don't they put them on right before when they're going to talk to the teller when they're transacting in a branch that they own? It costs them nothing. repurposes their above the line media spend. So they're like, how do you know all this stuff? I'm like, I don't. I'm just sort of saying, isn't that a... And so anyway, long story short, I didn't know any code. I didn't know how to write any piece of software.
Yeah.
Right? I just built a couple of websites. And I went away going, okay, I'm going to build you a national distribution video switching system on an encrypted network managed by 3D networks into all these banks. And I'm going to switch live TV to advertisements. And I worked out an architecture. I sourced MPEG-2 boxes from America that actually power the dark rides for Disney. I actually built a scheduling system which threw MPEG files over FTP overnight when the branches are closed. I had an RS-232 connector on C++ in Director that switched the TV from live. And people go, how'd you do that? I go, I just read the manual and I built it. I didn't go to any school. And people are like, that's impossible. And I'm going, no, it's not, because I had a passion to solve a problem. Yeah. And I did it in like 6 months. That software was deployed, it was tested, and it worked. And then they went in to sell it overseas. And, so that was the start of my journey. From there on in, I've been part of 4 major software companies that we've floated on 3 different markets around the world. The ASX, on the NASDAQ, and on the AIM in London. And so, since then, I've met some of the world's greatest people, from Richard Branson. I've flown on private jets. I've done deals with the German soccer league. There's all sorts of stuff that I've done. Worked with big studios. I've done instructional videos with George Lynch. I've scored George Lynch's film. You've done
that thing also with Eddie Van Halen. You've done that.
Well, Eddie and Alex. I got to know Alex through my relationship with Guitar Center, who the linear software. There's a huge industry support. Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, Alan Parsons, just Ross Robinson, who's a producer for Korn.
What's his name from The Cure? Robert Smith?
Well, so Pearl Thompson, the guitarist from The Cure.
Yeah.
That's my musical side of my life. So I just done an album with him, and that's released with Peter Gabriel and Stuart Copeland from The Police. And so, there's all this... My life has been... I've been living in America for many years now, between New York and LA. And people go to me, you've been a CTO, a CEO, you've got all these titles, and you know what? They're just brands. It's like pop, rock. To me, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I just got to go with passion. And so I've been doing it so long now that now it's also, I'm starting to do stuff with federal government here. I'm doing innovation workshops with huge companies to teach them how to think in a free thinking mindset. And it's sort of, people ask me, how do you do that? And I used to say, I don't know, I just do it. But the actual truth is, I've been a free thinker for so long that it's allowed me to see this common term outside the box, right? And so that's becoming valuable because technology is disrupting many industries. And, unfortunately, we have a school system which tries really, really hard to do a great job, but it's built on revenue. And it's built on extending the learning period to a time frame that they say is what it should be. Yeah. And so I try to resonate with people like me who don't fit the mold. And what I say to them is celebrate it, right? So you're weird, you're different. That is so cool. And that's going to be the value in the future. Yeah. Being a robot, don't get me wrong. We need people who are great mathematicians, great accountants.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But in a core business, in all my business experience now and all over the world, you need the fearless adventurer. You need a visionary. Steve Jobs is a visionary.
Yeah.
I believe I'm a visionary. I've met Branson. He's a visionary. And there's lots of visionaries. These guys that have ideas and startups. But those people need the corporate, the corporate professionals, the guys that can support you, that can make your companies. What I find actually happens when I start talking to these companies is they've lost their fearless adventurer. Yeah. It's run by accountants.
Yeah.
And so, when I try and talk to people these days, it's like I try and get them to touch that inner passion and find that passion.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, like my passion now is to try and help people understand that being different is not something that is a bad thing. It's phenomenal.
And be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And embraced. Yeah.
Because as well as I do, Tony, it's like in all the years we've known each other, like I am living proof that, man, if anyone wants to research my life, if I wrote it down, people wouldn't believe the stuff that I've done. I've lived in Germany, Spain, France, London, America, here, there, everywhere. I've done all these great albums. I've done this. And I'm not even a professional.
I remember when a mutual friend of ours, David Haberfeld, who you shared the stage with at Revolver.
Yeah.
But I remember
That was a good gig.
That was an awesome gig, dude. Captain Badass.
Captain Badass. That was my stage name, Captain
Badass.
My motto was born to die.
So I caught up with Dave, and he said, dude, have you heard from Finn? I said, mate, I haven't seen or heard from him for ages. And so he started to rattle off about where you'd been and what you'd done, and I was so fucking delighted for you. But I wasn't surprised, because even from back then when we were hanging out, when you were living back in Northcote there, mate, that's what you did, man. You were fucking all over shit. You were fucking weird. You were a weird guy back then. Your hair's the same.
Yeah, my hair's the same.
You're wearing the same, pretty much, well, not exactly the same clothes, but you're styling as you were. So fucking, so it doesn't surprise me. But I think that's the good message there, mate. The kids need to know is that sometimes people feel alone, they feel isolated, and they feel rejected by mainstream society. So therefore, they never get a chance to embrace their gifts and their talents, which is where it's at and what's inside of them, mate. So this is beautiful.
Here's a couple of things that I've done in my career which have blown my life up. Being a weirdo and a crazy person is that through my life I've met people and I've been like in awe of them. And so having that young background where I've been like bullied at school, being from Liverpool, doing TV commercials, hassled, it built me a thick skin. Yeah. Anytime I met someone that I was like, wow, this person is amazing. You know what I'd often do to them? Is go up and ask them to be my mentor. Yeah. Right? Instead of being scared of them, like, oh, that guy's amazing. Like people go, how do you play with all these amazing musicians, like incredible, do all these albums with like some of my heroes? And how come they're involved in your companies? I go, well, they want to be with me. And they're like, well, how come they want to be with you? And I'm just like, well, you know what? It's this energy and this projection. I learned from mentors to take the fear away. So a lot of kids have been programmed, right?
Definitely.
About this, especially in Australia. Trust me, I've lived all around the world. And in Australia, we have this self-sabotage thing, which is in our paradigm. So we think, here's a great idea, and then, oh, but that will never work. Yeah. Hang on, that's your subconscious telling you that. That's some of the programming that you have. That stuff stops you achieving. When I went to the NAMM show the first time to play guitar, and in the late 80s, amongst all my heroes, I was 17, right? My first solo album come out, I'm shredding, I'm doing all my 8-finger playing way back then, and it was like, I was really sort of nervous, because I'm now, there's Steve Lukather there, there's, whatever. And so, but then after doing it a couple of times, I got the exposure to that, I realized, hey man, these are just guys.
Exactly.
And so like, some of my close friends now, like Bam Margera from Jackass, he always comes and stays with me in Hollywood when we're together. And people go, well, how come you guys hang out? He's crazy. And he's like, he's not. He's like me. And I'll tell you a story about Bam. I'm sure he won't mind me telling it. Yeah. So Bam was at school, and we've got very similar backgrounds, right? So if you're at school, listen to this. Right? Bam was at school. He was always hassled at school. He hated it. Whilst he was in school, he had a thing called CKY. And this is in Westchester, Pennsylvania, where he's from. And they were just filming random crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
On YouTube, way back then, posting it to this thing called YouTube, which was new.
Yeah.
Anyway, dropped out of school. Johnny Knoxville had a deal, I think, forget if I've got the story wrong, but it doesn't matter. This is what I remember from what Bam told me. Johnny had a deal with MTV Viacom, contacted them because they were doing videos on YouTube. Now, Bam's crew was really the core of Jackass, right? Yeah. Ryan and those guys. So they went together and formed this thing. Jackass blew up. I was with Bam at the launch at Soho House in New York when we did when he did the Jackass 3.5 launch, which was the internet version of After 3. And I was with Phil and the whole family and stuff. He told me that Jackass 3 was the highest grossing movie in history in the November that it was released. Wow. And it was over 300 million grossing on something that cost 20 million to shoot. Yeah. Now, when he left school, right, crazy. He bought his first Lambo, right? He drove past his school, gave him the finger, and did a burnout in front of the school. Yeah. He was so proud. Yeah. But it wasn't because he was a dickhead, it was because he was always told he was no good. Yeah. And he made good. Right?
More than good.
So a lot of the artists I've met, a lot of the successful people in life have a very similar story. They're being told to be good little drones, and they just aren't. And that's not a sign of that you're bad. It's a sign that you're phenomenally gifted, right? And so if you're being fed ADD drugs or you're told you're ADD, you know what? Here's the way I look at it. Attention deficit disorder, who's ever said what you're learning is a load of shit or crap, excuse the French? It's like, if you've got attention deficit disorder, isn't it that the fact that what you're being taught isn't relevant to you? And so why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Like I'd be completely ADD if someone said that, but I'd be like, awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, that's a bad thing, because it means I'm weird and I'm different. So I have the title and the bandana of professional weirdo, and people in corporate land go, oh my God. And I go, let me explain something to you. I get paid a lot of money to think different. That's what I do.
Yeah, and that's what it requires. It requires something different because everyone's doing the same kind of shit.
But what a job!
Someone's got to fucking come
Where
up
do you
with
go?
innovation.
Where do you go to a careers teacher and go, hey, I want to get paid to think different? It's like people would laugh at you.
Yeah. My man used to laugh because I wanted to do music. He couldn't understand. He'd say to me, what do I tell my mates? What do I fucking tell them? My mate said, he's an accountant, he's a teacher, he's a lawyer. I get that. What do I say? You sit in a room, you listen to music and you twiddle a few knobs. That's not a job, it's a hobby. As you said before, you alluded to that. I think old generation, old line thinking, but even today, man, just for you to say to people, in today, I'm a professional weirdo. I don't know how I did it. I'm just think differently. I think a lot of people would still look at you and just got to go.
Here's a bit of wisdom. I think it's wisdom. So it's simple. All this complex. We make stuff so complex, right? And as you get later in life, like me, you start going. I often go, how do I have such an amazing life? How do I live in different countries? How do I have flown like this? How do I go to these events, the Grammys and that, all free? How do I get free clothes given to me? How does that happen?
Yeah.
And it's this law of attraction. Weirdos like me attract other weirdos, and they're out there. And so just because people in your clique are saying to you, you're no good, trust me, there's a lot of people that have had a similar story that will connect with you, and you just got to find your passion. And so when someone says you got to have a job and you got to then you can have some fun on the side, you know what? In tomorrow's world where innovation is, and this is a space that I teach and I lecture in all the time, it's a lot of crap. Technology is disrupting everything, and so the amount of startups, the amount of ideas that are getting funded, like to get $100,000, $1 million funding if you've got an idea. Look, when we had Guevara as a business, when it first started, it was just an idea. When Linus was a business, it was first just an idea. When Jamit was an idea, it was just an idea. So all of these things were brought to market, and they were just ideas. They didn't even exist. Yeah. And we had big funding behind it, big backing, because people, if you've got a vision and you can tell a story and you believe in something and you have passion, would you rather go to work and try and earn $100,000 a year? Or you just try and pull $1 million cash into your idea and go and build a business?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
agree.
It's not that simple, but it starts with passion. If you have passion, it's a lot easier now than it was when I started.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good point. I think it's passionate. A lot of people are passionate, but I think a lot of people also and again, this is if I can share my experience in recent times, is that until you also have some self-belief, because even with what you do, you still got to have a self-belief in what you're doing, or either you just don't care about what other people think. So people either their self-esteem is low, or they don't, or they're worried about what other people are thinking about them.
I think you've touched on a really important point. Now, I say to people honestly, and this is honest, I actually don't care. And people go, what do you mean you don't care? Because it makes me sound cold. But I actually don't. Like, I care about friends and stuff, but I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I actually don't. If someone goes, that guy's a dickhead, I go, awesome. Thank you. And it's because honestly, it's not taking me from my journey. I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
Yeah.
But I always go through my life trying to make sure that everyone I touch has a better experience from touching me than I get from them.
Yeah.
And I never hurt anyone. And so that's part of my philosophy, is that, I mentor some young kids like you now, Tony, and I just say to them, right, what do you want? And they go, I just want enough money to be an actor, or I want to be this. And I love a Lambo or a Bentley or something. I go, rightio. And tell you a secret how to get it. They go, how do you get it? I say, you ready? This is how you get it. Every time you meet someone, they must go away from meeting you with more than what you've got from them. And they go, what do you mean? And I go, it's this simple. Take all the theory books in the world and throw them in the bin, right? Anyone that meets you and they walk away going, wow, I got something amazing with that guy. Guys are awesome. And you don't have to do anything. You just have to exert an energy, a passion. You got to care about them. You got to think about them.
And be yourself.
100%.
Just fucking be you. And I think that's been one of my greatest lessons, Finn, is that...
Well, being yourself is hard when you're worried about what people think about you.
Precisely.
Right? And so it's about trying to get through that. Now, we've been educated that, it really matters what you're wearing. Now, it matters if you think it's important, but I stand in my space, being a professional weirdo, looking like this, walking into big boardrooms from all these corporates. Now, you know what happens? They look at me first and they're like, well, they used to. And then I start opening my mouth. And I start talking about tech. And I can talk, trust me, I might look like this, but I can talk hardcore tech, everything from broad spectrum, MMDS, wireless, pull down, satellite, local loops, digital video. But I can talk all this stuff, right? But is it important? Absolutely not. It's not who I am. I'm just someone who likes solving problems. And all that stuff is just stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And theory books are stuff. And they're great, don't get me wrong. So I'll tell you a little story. I don't know how much time we got, but
yeah, we got some time.
My friend Pearl Thompson from The Cure. So I'm in Los Angeles. Pearl, again, one of these things that happens in life, came to stay with me. So we started hanging out, right?
Yeah.
Now, Pearl is amazing. Every Cure album cover he's painted since they started. Right. He's written a ton of their songs. He's not in the band anymore, but he was in the band for like 28 years. Right. Anyway, so he comes to stay with me in LA. So we're hanging out at my place in Hollywood Hills. And we start recording. And I'm right. And I'm Mr. Perfectionist, producer, got all the gear, it's all lined up, blah, blah, blah. Now, I've learned so much theory, it's ridiculous. But I start laying it out. Pearl gets his guitar, and it's out of tune. Now I have my 7 and 8 string guitars. I'm in random tunings, but everything's precise, right? We start playing. I'm like, dude, your guitar's out of tune. He's like, yeah, let's just record it. Now, you got to understand something. The sound coming out of his guitar was horrific to me. Sounded horrible. Yeah. And I'm just like, Finn, he sold 60, 70 million records. I've sold one. Yeah. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. And I've learnt all the theory, what you should do, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go with it. What have we got to lose? We're having fun anyway. Yeah. Throw all my theory out the window. Right? So, it's out of tune. It sounds horrible to me. I'm like, and I'm putting my bits in. We put the tracks together. As I'm mixing these tracks, I'm like, guitar sounds unbelievably good. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I'm looking at phase scopes, vector scopes, looking at what's going on with the phase. It's like, it's all out of time, but it's just so awesome. Yeah. And it's like, and it reinforced something that I learned about technology. And so that I've forgotten about music. I became so much of a technocrat, technically player, right? Doing all this technical stuff and production and spending a month on a song, even longer, producing, 127 tracks, doing all these crazy things that I do in my music. And I'm working with this guy and we're just jamming it out. Right? And it's ripping. And then I go and jam with George Lynch at his house as we're doing an instructional video for Dangerous Guitar, where I'm, teaching some guitar stuff with him. Yeah. He's one of my heroes. Yeah. And we're just jamming. It's just ripping, and like I'm just making this up. So I learned this really important lesson, which was all the theory I've learned in the world, when I apply it to my technology, I arguably have done zero theory at all. I've just sort of worked it out as I've gone and read a few books. And I've built all these big tech platforms and raised millions of dollars and launched this and got patents in my name. I never thought I'd run a company. I don't like being a CEO. Because I'm not good at it. Right? Yeah. I'm just really good at being an ideas guy. And so I worked out something. I started reverse engineering my music by going, okay, all my theory, I'm throwing it out the window. I was being a Logic guy for so long. I started learning Ableton. I started tuning my guitar in strings. So one of my 7-string Ricos, I tuned it to the word baggage, B-A-G-G-A-G-E. And so I started thinking about making words out of chords. Yeah. On another song on Ministry, what I did was in the breakdown, I wrote the words to Ministry, and what I did was then I transcribed those words to Morse code, and then I learnt the part on the guitar in Morse code. So the guitar in Morse code is actually playing the words of the song. Then I did things on the Ableton Push where I labeled it out, and I got the DNA, some of the DNA structures of different animals. And what I would do is I'd actually set up the instrument and I'd map the actual picture of the DNA strands on the push, and that would be what it was generating. And so, because what I was and so I'm just trying to throw all the theory out the window and applying what I've learned from my technology world. And yes, I know a lot about tech now in a small segment, but applying that thinking. So it's taught me something really important in life, is that you can go to school, you can learn all the theory you want in the world, but unless it's connected to passion, often the theory and the rules actually box you in. And so I do a talk. Tony came to one of my talks and it was called Being an Expert at Not Being an Expert. Now, this is the concept. Experts by definition, because to define an expert is someone who knows everything about a set of rules. Yeah. That's how you measure. Like, I'm better than him as an expert because I know more about the rules. Or
that field, yeah.
Right. What has innovation and creativity got to do with expert?
Zilch.
Nothing. And so I learned later on in life, as I'm going, holy crap, the expertise or the expert is the thing that's stopping me from being creative. Yeah. And so, and I meet so many musicians and technologists and companies, and so all this stuff that I've been doing through my life, I've worked out that if you want to be creative, it's about reverse engineering the expert. So I now teach tools for experts to go beyond expert, and to to use the tools in the tool shed so you can use them to be creative.
Yeah.
Because creative is, in my view, is the new paradigm. It's in the past it was like, that guy's a creative guy, but we're running a corporate business here. That's fine. But in the future, if you're not generating ideas, if you don't have a Horizon 3 strategy, which, without getting technical for all your kids out there, it's just an ability to be able to see the future. You can't see the future when you're blinded by a set of rules.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If all these experts were so good at innovating, we wouldn't need innovators. Yeah. Right? So when it gets back to the kids and or anyone that's unemployed, trust me, you don't have to go to like some seminar about learning to now change your career. Like last week, I saw at the Melbourne Convention Centre, I was trying to go to just a JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
Convention Centre's booked out.
Yeah.
But what's going on here? Oh, it's the Change of Career Fest for adults.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so what's that about? Oh, adults are going to try and find out what to do with their careers because it's either been replaced by innovation or they're not happy anymore. Like, so there's a convention for that, and so it's sold out for that. It's like, oh my God. So there's a demand, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, guys, people, if you can, start every day experiencing a new hobby, a new sport. That's if you don't have passion. Find what it is that you're passionate about. And you could be just a good mum. It can be just like, I just like doing the books. Great. Figure out a way to be really good at that. Figure out a way to be, what we call it a blue ocean strategy. It's a typical business strategy. But what that is trying to place yourself in the market so you're not just a mastering engineer. You're the world's only mastering engineer that uses psychoacoustics to create energetic fields in the body or something like that.
Which I want you to talk about that whole area too. So go on.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. So,
this is fucking fascinating, guys. This is fucking... When Finn first brought this up to me, it was just like, oh my God, fuck, this absolutely makes such fucking sense. And straight away my mind was going to applications, fucking boom. But anyway, tell us about it, dude. This is amazing.
I've got a glass of water here. But look, let me explain.
I'm going to get you one.
Yeah, because I want to explain something to you.
You explain, so I'll get some water.
So first I'm going to explain the company Linus, the invention that I invented. Now, digital video is... Everyone knows what a digital video file is and a digital audio file is. Not many people know that there's no audio or video in a video or audio file. It's just a series of numbers. And the structure of it is two pieces of data. And so the glass of water that Tony brings in, what I'm going to explain is that the glass is the file format and the water is the sound and picture information. But it's just in data. It's in zeros and ones and metadata. Without getting technical. Linus is a system I worked out that when a piece of audio is turned into digital, and it's bits, it's like Lego blocks. So the sound information has little blocks, and those blocks represent a period of time. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 second, 6 second, 7 6, blah, blah, blah. So I worked out a way to pull those sound bits out of the glass and reorganize the structure of them so I could do an edit. So I could build a video edit. I could play it in a different format. So I could take it out of the glass and put it in a jug. So one file format could play in another. And the editing of the file could happen in a second without rendering. And so the world is full of people doing an edit on video. So think about this. A sports game is recorded and then it's edited X amount of times. Highlights package, TV commercials, different sport shows want different edits, different people like different players. Well, every time that's an edit happens, a brand new file is created. Well, with Linus, this is what's just floated on the ASX. It's this ability to disassemble and reassemble the building blocks of the file in a second without it going through the process of rendering, which means a file doesn't need to be stored, doesn't need to be transcoded. It's a living dynamic file type. Where that becomes valuable in the future is I get into my connected car.
What, bro?
I have 17 minutes till I get home. And so I'm in my connected car. I've got 17 minutes till I get home. I want to watch a sports game, but I want to watch it through my favorite 3 players' eyes. So all the cameras that are filming the event structure, instead of being mixed down now, it means that we can pull bits from different cameras. So I say, I've got my navigation tells me I've got 70 minutes to get home. It knows who my favorite 3 players are, and it builds me a piece of personalized video for me that no one else sees in a second without rendering. And so this is where we're getting to in the future of content, but it also works with audio. So audio, instead of mixing down the audio, we're having stems, having 10 different stems, we can synchronize the bits of those, and it means an artist now never, like this glass is the water is the sound information and the glass is the file format. You take the water out, it means that you only ever make one copy of your music song in the future, right? You never make another copy. What's distributed around the world is the empty glass. Every time it's played, the water has to go into the glass, which means every single play on every device is a record that ASCAP, CSAC, BMI, APRA in Australia knows about. So your royalties as an artist goes through the roof. From a piracy perspective, the water coming down the wire is only the binary. It needs to be sit in the glass. And so that's all encrypted. If you capture this information that's coming down the internet, you don't have the glass. You can't put it in. There's no device in the world that will put the two together. Yeah. So it's protected on that front. It also means as an artist with the stems, you can sell just the vocal track to Tiesto to put in his DJ mix. And when he presses play, instead of it all being there, it's all coming through the wire and assembling into his play structure, which means you can sell one lick on one song forever. When I sat with Dave Grohl in his new studio in LA, he was like saying to me, so can you sell all the loops that I haven't got, all the guitar riffs that I haven't actually recorded, can I put a website and sell them? I'm like, yes. So future for artists in this sort of ecosystem means that an artist can have a guitar riff, put it up, and be sold without being pirated.
It's awesome.
Right? So that's the linear system. Now, talking about radical thinking and all my background in theory and music, I started thinking about the tuning of music. And so years ago in '96, I worked for IBM and I did this thing called psychoacoustic audio processing, which was creating 3D.
Was Q-Sound? Was Q-Sound back in the day?
Yeah, it was back in the day, but it was called TAS. It was an Australian version through IBM, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was creating 3D sound from 2 speakers. Mm-hmm. And without getting into all the theory, it was head-related transfer frequencies, HRTFs, and there was all these psychoacoustic cues I was working. Long story short, last year I was sitting with Ahmet Zappa, Frank Zappa's son, who's a good mate, and I started talking to him about ancient tuning, harmonic tuning. And it's something that, if you don't know what it is, it's a tuning that's not built on... the 12-tone temperaments tunings was built and designed so everything could play in tune with each other. Yeah. Pianos could play with violins, right? So harmonic tuning is different. And so it resonates... The harmonics of that resonates with the human physiology, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't designed to resonate with the human physiology. Old Tibetan singing bowls and sitars can be tuned in such a way that they just sound good. But people didn't understand why they sound good. Anyway, long story short, I started thinking every song in the world that's been recorded, pretty much, I'd say 99.99999% of it, has been tuned. All the instruments have been tuned while they've been recorded using a 12-tone temperament scale. A guitar has frets on it. Yeah. You can't use harmonic tuning on a guitar because every time you play a fret, it's back out. Even if you tune the strings open. When you play them, it's now divisible by 12, which is the octave, right? Hope I'm not losing you. So what I started thinking was, if you've mixed a piece of music, why don't we reshift harmonically each note in the musical scale back to the frequencies that resonate with the human physiology? So we set up a process of retuning every note, every semitone in the musical scale. We started with really every tone, and then we started looking at semitones. But it was like an auto tune for each note in the musical scale on a mix.
Yeah.
And so we're only talking a couple of cents here and there on those. But what ended up happening was when we did that, the sound just exploded. It came alive. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds unbelievable. And so you have to record using your tempered scale, but then using this post-production process. So we tried this.
So this is something I could slap on here.
You could, absolutely, yeah. And so then what we did was he started adding psychoacoustic cues around creating engagement, relaxation, excitement. And then we had neuroscience tests done in Zagreb, which people had 18 groups of people with these biometric scanners and stuff. And we had a file without resonics. Resonics is the name of it, by the way, half harmonics and resonance. So we have all the neuroscience testing, which proves that we can create, by listening to a piece of music, we can create engagement, relaxation. And so the concept here is you go to the gym, when you listen to the song, and you can have it over anything, heavy metal to techno to dub to jazz, it sounds more exciting.
Yeah.
Or you listen to death metal, it sounds relaxing. It's about creating these cues. So we're now doing trials with, Ahmet's got trials going with the Los Angeles Police Department for riot control. We're talking with the US Department of Defense. I can't talk about that because it's confidential, but it's around warfare and troop engagement. And so it's really interesting how by having a music background and thinking tech and throwing it all away and just starting to ask questions. So I have a tool that I use for innovation, which I'll teach you. It's called Curiosity Cured the Cat. The trick here is to question the things in your life, everyone has it, that you take for granted. Tony, why's that got 23 knobs on it? Don't know. Oh, because they all do something. Yeah, but why are they black? Now, you start asking questions. So the goal here is to ask yourself 10 questions a day that you would normally never answer. And you just tick them off. If you can answer them straight away, you tick them off. It's when you can't answer them, you put them on a side, you put them on a notepad, that's a chance to innovate.
Yeah.
Right? And so every time and every company that comes to me, they come to me because they see a problem that someone else can't see. Right? Now, that's a chance for all you future budding young kids out there who are trashed and told you no good. Trust me. Start looking for the gold. It's out there. And if your iPhone doesn't do something and you have a question, write it down. Yeah. If you can't find an answer, go and figure out what it is. You've got the world's biggest library is on your fingertips with Google. Yeah. Right? And so it's far better than any school.
Absolutely.
So, these are the things about thinking about innovating. And so music is going to go, I believe, is going to go through a renaissance and it's going to be valuable again. I'm working hard to do that. I'm working with some great people, John Sykes from Whitesnake, Ahmet, a bunch of other great people. And so I come back to Australia from being in overseas for so many years, and
do you like being back here?
I love it. I really love it because I believe.
What do you like about it? I mean, New York, LA is fantastic, high life, just good times. But what do you like about being back here after you've really just had a life that most people would be envious of? So what do you like so much about being back here?
It's a really great question. What I love about it is it gives me the chance to invent. So here's what I've learned about America, which is a great country and I've got great friends there. It's a great place to launch what you've invented here rather than to work there to invent stuff. There's so much noise and friends and connections and stuff going on there that when you're trying to build something, it's really, really hard. And I've had offices in San Jose and Silicon Valley, and I'd flew all around America, but I'm always in meetings and doing stuff. But it's great once you've actually got the crystallization of an idea. So me being in the ideas and innovation and helping companies, I love it here because this country's turning a corner, and it's realizing that its resources of the old are not where its value is. Its value is its people.
Yeah, and like I said, it's thinking.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm excited about coming back here is you turn the TV on, it's not screaming at you, it's not fighting at you. There's no SWAT driving down your street. There's not everyone's on prescription drugs. And look, I'm generalizing, but it's a very different environment to here. I must say though that there is definitely a culture in Australia of feeling that you're not good enough and rubbishing people. I think we have to move to a place where we celebrate. Like, I've known Tony a long time. Tony celebrates when people are successful. He doesn't rubbish them. And you know what happens when you do that? People want to be around you. You know what happens when people are around you? You get successful. So rather than thinking if you want to be successful, oh, well, that guy's a dickhead, I don't like him, because really deep down you're jealous, go up to them and celebrate them.
Yeah.
You know what? The chances are they'll go, hey, I'm going to show you how I do this. Oh, my God.
But the other thing, too, I mean, I remember watching a beautiful video that Joe Rogan had put up years ago, and it was about haters. And he was, it was him and his mate having a talk where his mate was saying, look, remember that night? One night you were up there crushing on stage, and I just fucking left. He said, yeah, why'd you leave? He said, I've got to be honest with you, man. I was fucking jealous. I was just fucking jealous of watching you just owning that fucking crowd, and you know, and then he just realised later that, you know, that really it's about embracing that and using that as inspiration rather than being jealous and envious. Yeah, look at it and admire that sort of thing and say, okay, well, he can do that. Surely I can probably do something like that, and use that as a benchmark to get over. And besides that, man, that adage of fucking your success is mine is something that theoretically understood people used to talk about, and I'd say, yeah, that makes sense. But really, the last year, especially, Finn, it really fucking got to me. Is that and it comes back to that point you were making before. You were saying about, hey, make sure that interactions you have with people, that you leave something more, or you leave something behind. You're not just there taking. Yeah, sometimes you can take, but you can't be a parasite. And that's the laws of fucking nature, man. Like nature, the laws of nature are for, you know. Animals don't fucking die of old age in the fucking light. You got to grow and contribute. If a tree doesn't fucking bear fruit and contribute to nature for the fucking birds to eat, it's the same with humanity, man. So if you're not growing as a person, learning, trying to fucking expand yourself, trying to fucking better yourself in whatever area it is of your life, and you're using that to fucking better yourself and contribute to society, to humanity, to help, again, what Demartine talked about,
well, it's
help
interesting.
problems, then, you know.
When I built Linus, my passion was about building something that would change the way people learn. Change the education system, because I hated it. So it was like, why don't we have education that's dynamically adapting around me, so I can cut my learning time down to 2 years, and everything I'm learning is completely relevant to me. And then it just was in video, and I've learned this and that and the other. And then I was super passionate about building a new format for recording artists, because I've been a recording artist, I've had deals, I've had publishing, I've done all this sort of stuff. So you know what happens? I go to America, I meet some of these great artists. I go to Guitar Center, they're like, oh my God, what you're doing. I go to them and I'm saying, I said to them, guys, I'm building a new format for music, which is going to protect artist revenue. It's going to put value back in the industry, and I'm doing it because I give a shit. And all these people that are out there raping and crying and saying it's no good, they're not changing the system. I'm here to change the system. Then I got oh my God, phone calls. I got meetings. All these meetings started lining up. Emails going to people like Eric Clapton, Billy Gibbons, all this sort of stuff starting to go on. Guitar Center was facilitating that. Mm. So then I meet, you know, Alex Van Halen. I talk to Alex on the phone. I go, Alex, I'm building a format of music which is going to protect your revenues for your life. You can't keep touring. I'm talking to him like this. Yeah. And he's like, Finn, amazing. And I'm like, I need you to get me in front of Irving Azoff, your manager. Mm. And so the conversation was like a little bit like, well, you know, but you know what? Alex did it. And he's a great guy, an amazing artist. But, you know, these artists that I talk to, they're behind it. You know, I'm going to them. I'm just going, oh, you missed it. It's like, I'm passionate about doing something in the music industry. And I know that these guys want to leave a legacy for artists.
No doubt.
And the new artists coming up, you know, Van Halen started somewhere. Dave Stewart started somewhere. These are all smart people who have made a great career out of music. Mm. And they are great people. Yeah. These aren't just rock stars. You know, you get to know them. And so when you have a passion, you can talk like that with these people. And so you see someone great on stage killing it, you go up after them and you go, dude, it was so good, it's so inspirational. The chances are, hey man, you've now got a friend. Rather than this jealousy, oh, that guy's a wanker. You know, that doesn't help you at all. Yeah. And so even if you wanted to be selfish about you and it was all about your own ego, the best thing you can do is go up and congratulate them.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not rubbish them, you know?
Yeah, no
doubt.
And
so...
But it's got to be sincere though, Finn, because the thing is, you just can't go up there mechanically and do it again, because people pick up on it. Again, this comes back to this authenticity
but it's
thing,
about
you know?
Training, right? Yeah. And so you can't just instantly be authentic. I found you have to. It's a change. You're changing your paradigms. You have programming, and people have it, and you can't just go, I've instantly now not have ego. It's about, okay, I'm going to stand in my space. I'm going to get up. I'm going to do some gratitudes. I'm going to go, you know what?
How important is that, dude, man? Fucking, I found
so
every
important.
day I just fucking go through a morning
changes
ritual.
your mindset.
Yeah, and I'm being very honest. I get to a point where I fucking get tears in my eyes sometimes, dude, because I get.
So for those out there that doesn't know what we're talking about here, it's really simple.
Yeah.
You wake up. very first thing that happens when you wake up is you have a certain amount of energy in your day, right? And think of it as a fuel tank. And you decide where you're going to give that energy to. The very first thing, if you give your energy to having gratitude for the things you have in your life, right? Your energy and what you beam out is on a totally different plane. You see, I meet people and all they do is tell me what's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what? This guy over here is on drugs, and then he hasn't paid my rent, and blah blah blah. I just sit back and I smile. I'm just like, okay, right. I can't help you, right? You got to figure out that you got to change your energy. And so what happens is, I believe, I don't have any scientific evidence of this, but I have a life that proves it. Is that if you're open and you have gratitude and you're beaming on an energy level which is positive, you attract people like moth to a light. And people go to me, how do you attract all these people? And I go, I really say I don't know. But I think it's because I wake up and I go, you know what? So amazing today. Yeah. I got an amazing partner, beautiful house, great car. Sure, I can have a bigger house. Sure, I can have a better car. But I don't care about that stuff. I see success as every day I wake up and I do whatever I want.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's amazing. And so I have gratitude for that every day. I wake up and I go, you know what? I don't know how I'm here. But whatever's up there that's guiding me, keep doing your thing because I have gratitude for it.
Well, there is science behind it. Like I said, we're energetic beings. We broadcast at a certain frequency. We're going to attract that. Rock station gets rock music. But a great thing that my mentor Peter Sage told me, which helps you be in that state, it's a bit like bringing the future forward. He said, imagine if I wrote you a check for $10 million that you took to your bank today, cashed it. It was cashed, money in the bank. It was there. It was there. That was your fucking money. But you couldn't access it for 6 months, but it was there, a cleared fucking check in your name, done deal, fucking it's your fucking money. How would you live your life knowing that it's going to be there? People would live their life a lot differently. So it's taking the future and bringing it forward. So there's this correlation there of knowing, just knowing that everything's okay. And wealth is really nothing more but the perception of abundance triggered by gratitude. So, and scientists are telling us now, man. So it works. It fucking works.
And the other thing is, trust me. I've got a lot of friends that are very, very wealthy. Like, I'm talking very wealthy. And I look at their life, and sometimes it's not what you think. They're worrying about who are their real friends, who just wants money from them. There's all these added pressures that happen. Being able to be free and being able to sort of create an existence without all that other stress that comes once you tip into a point where everyone's trying to get to your money or sue you for money or whatever. Yeah. It's those people often then sort of want to just have a life where they can get rid of all of that and just get back to an existence where they're just happy. And so this concept of I would just be happy if I had this, change your gratitude. So, man, I'm happy now, and you'll start seeing what opportunities come into your life. Things happen to me. I don't know how they happen, but I believe that it's because energetically I'm open. And I'm adding value, and I've made it really simple. It's like Pearl with his guitar. I go back to simplicity. Yeah. I can put all this baggage on it and labels and stuff like that. But I'm so happy to be back in Australia, because I think for me, it's the right place right now where the universe wants me to be. Yeah. It might not mean that tomorrow I'll be here, but right now, here,
that's where you need to be.
I'm here,
and you accept that,
and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so.
And you're not fighting. You're just going with the flow of the current where it's taking you.
I trust my gut. I don't trust my head. And so that little voice inside you that tells you something, right? Oh, I should do this. I should go up to that person. I should go up to that celebrity and just say this. Oh no, I better not. That's your head. Your gut, right? Just go and do it. You'd be surprised what happens when you do that. That's your intuition talking. Yeah. And if you can focus on working on your intuition, so when you know deep down, when everyone's telling you can't achieve something and you know you can,
you fucking do it.
Stay with that. Go the distance, because that's what's going to create you the life that you deserve. Yeah. Right? Because everyone deserves an amazing life.
I agree. And you've had an amazing life, and it's been amazing having you here, because we got to fucking wind up, unfortunately, my friend, because we normally run about 45, but fuck, can we get you back again, dude? Because you got...
Sure. I can talk so many stories. Fucking, I should do a Finn story time segment.
That would be fucking awesome. Mate, can I just say fucking thanks for coming. I really appreciate you making
time. Thanks for saying thanks.
Yeah. No, seriously, man. I really appreciate you making time to come in, say hello, fucking tell some stories, share your wisdom, because it's, for me personally, bro, it's been an inspiration, and I've really enjoyed coming and watching you speak. I've always walked away with something, and yeah, it's been fucking awesome. So,
the thing he walks away with something is a headache.
Thank you very much, mate. Let me get bring it in,
Thank
bro,
you.
because fucking you're awesome, man. Thank you so much. I fucking love you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're out of here. So, thank you very much for watching and listening, and we're out of here. And as I always say, please remember, be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves.
Unreal.
And be cool and be weird. Be weird. I love you, fuckers. See you later. Hey. And that, my friend, is how we do the motherfucking podcast.